Welcome to Road to the Derby on VSiN. Ron Flatter with you here in Las Vegas. The story of this Kentucky Derby is all about Tiz The Law. He's an odds-on favorite to win the Derby. That's not just on the morning line, by the way, at 3 to 5, but he's also no better in terms of a price than 1 to 2 here in Las Vegas. We'll be standing by, and just as soon as I am made aware that we are connected with the lead owner of Tiz The Law, Jack Knowlton, we will be comparing notes with him and finding out his reaction to the fact that his horse is such a short price to win this race. A couple of other notes and news bits here from the Kentucky Derby, and in terms of the field for the Derby, it's down to 17. King Guillermo was taken out of the race because of a fever that he had spiked on Thursday. Actually, it was diagnosed on Wednesday, but the final outcome in terms of his status for the race was declared when Juan Carlos Avila sent me a text in response to my question to say, is he in or out? And he says, unfortunately, he is out of the race. So 17 will be in the field. We should also tell you, too, that betting in Nevada on the Kentucky Derby is going to happen, but not to the extent that you might expect, because casinos in Nevada are not allowed to be into the pari-mutuel pool with Churchill Downs because there's a lack of an agreement between the track and the cartel of racebooks in Nevada. That's all about handle and percentage of that. No resolution of that. So basically the books are handling the race on their own. There will be strict limits, no horizontal betting, limited vertical betting, but some do have head-to-head matchups, which will be unique for Nevada. Well, a unique story is unfolding out of New York. The only horse in our lifetimes ever won the Belmont Stakes that was bred in New York is now trying to go one better after having won the Travers in between and now going for the Kentucky Derby for a 5th Grade 1 win. You remember Funny Side 17 years ago? Then you remember the lead owner of Saratoga Stable. He is Jack Knowlton, and he's on the line now from Louisville. Jack, feels like old home week 17 years later, right?
Well, it took us a long time to get our stable and our trainers Triple Crown, but we did it when we won the Belmont this year.
That's true. You got the lifetime Triple Crown, what with Funny Side already accomplishing the Kentucky Derby and Preakness, and Tiz The Law adding the Belmont for you and your trainer, Barclay Tagg, 82 years young. So let me ask you what you think of the morning line odds of 3 to 5 and the fact here in Las Vegas carrying no better than 1 to 2. Does that put pressure on you, or do you think that's just an underlay for this horse?
It doesn't put any pressure on me. Any pressure is on Barkley and Manny Franco, our jockey. Me as an owner, I stopped in Vegas on my way back from the Breeders' Cup and got a little bit of money in at 20 to 1, but they wouldn't let me have anywhere near what I wanted.
Oh, well done, because he opened at 21, and that's the best price you could have gotten on him at the futures at William Hill. And he's, look, you can't get him at better than 3 to 1 all summer long, and it just kept getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Did they know who you were when you went in and made that bet?
I'm not sure they did, but they didn't let me get as much as I wanted. But I'm happy with what I did get, and it looks awfully good right now. It's not the 150 to 1 I got on Funny Side with my buddy Gus Williams, but who's going to complain? I mean, I think the way he ran in the Travers, which Barkley and I really felt that 1.25 miles for this horse was just going to be the optimum distance, the classic distance. And Barkley would have been much happier if the Belmont had been 1.5 miles, quite honestly. He was disappointed when they changed it. And anybody who watched the Belmont, and I know everybody's going to, if he should happen to win the next 2 races, is going to say, it's an asterisk and all that. Anybody who watched the Belmont, if they're going to tell me he wasn't going to win that race or it was 1.5 miles, I'd like to have that argument.
Well, I'd like to hear what kind of an asterisk you might put on the other 13, because they would not have gone through the same process of having to be at the top of the game for such a long time. I get the whole 5-week thing, but how about going back to the fact that you have the Florida Derby, a Grade 1, and then the Belmont, and then the Travers. You could add the Kentucky Derby, could add the Preakness. You could be adding the Breeders' Cup Classic. You might make the argument that the asterisk should be on the other 13.
Let's just say the next 2, and let's call it the Quadruple Derby, and there's only one horse that's done it, and that's Whirlaway back in 1936.
Oh, a good history lesson there from Jack Knowlton, the lead owner of Sakatoga Stable, on the line here on Road to the Derby. So how do you prevent yourself from being overconfident with a horse that's won 4 Grade Ones?
Well, look, on paper, and we all know they do not run the races on paper. He's the fastest horse in the race. And he's the only horse that has shown he can win going a mile and a quarter. He ran the 4th fastest Travers time ever, wrapped up by Manny, thankfully, the last 16th. He would have had, I think, easily the 2nd fastest Travers after Arrogate if Manny, hadn't just wrapped up on him. So everybody tries to, find a chink in his armor. The only one that you can hear is, well, he doesn't like to run inside horses. Well, we were really anxious when there were 4 spots left, and we hadn't been chosen yet, and 2 of them were the 1 and 2. But luckily, we got the one we wanted. We got the 17. I think that gives Manny Franco every opportunity to do what he wants to do. Tiz has been breaking very sharply in all of his races this year. Manny's got just a world of confidence in him, and, it's our race to lose. And I really, quite honestly, would be very surprised if we do. But it's horse racing. It can happen. He can get interfered with. He can clip heels. Barkley likes to say, there are a million things that have to go right and only one thing go wrong, and you lose a race. So we're hoping for a clean trip, and I think if he gets that, based upon what he did in the Travers, the way he has come out since then to, sub 1 minute, 5 furlong works, he has not lost his edge whatsoever.
With Art Collector out of the race, and we learned that King Guillermo is out of the race as of Thursday as well, that means his pace presence is gone. How do you think their absence affects Tiz the Law and this race as a whole?
Well, you got to believe Authentic's going to, go out of there. That's the way Bob's horses usually go. And I would guess that, Manny just let him go and, sit off him. We're very comfortable, as you've seen his races this year, running a 3-path all the way around. He doesn't care. When he finishes his races, see the way he gallops out. And, he's really an amazing horse. When I first saw him last summer, before he had his maiden race at Saratoga, I'd go over there. Barkley's hiding him in the dark, 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. What impressed me more than, good times, not funny side, really, really fast times, but very, very good time. But the gallop out, they couldn't stop him until halfway up the backstretch. I said, this looks to me like a pretty serious horse. And he proved it right out of the gate the first time. And, other than the, difficult trip that he had in the Kentucky Jockey Club, he hadn't done anything wrong.
That's the thing, too. I know people will point to that race being his only loss. That's where anybody who wants to try to defeat him will be looking, at least in terms of going to school on him. But I think the bad news for anybody going to school on that, it's not going to rain on Saturday, and that probably wasn't the biggest factor in that race. And the inside traffic probably was. Yeah.
Yeah. Manny told us after the race, he said it was a trip. It wasn't the track that beat him that day. He got to step slowly out of the gate, and Manny, didn't have an opportunity to get him anywhere off the rail. And quite honestly, the Kentucky jockeys got a 3 to 5 shot Grade 1 winner coming in, and they schooled Manny a bit that day. And he's learned from it. I think the horses learned from it. And you saw it in the Holy Bull. It looked like maybe that's going to happen again. We had talked to Manny before the race, said, don't let that happen. He was going to get stuck down there. He sat back, he pulled out, went 3 wide, boom. And that was the end of it.
Good turning point for Manny in terms of his history with this horse. Was there ever a chance that he was going to lose the ride?
No, Barkley had a lot of faith in him. He, unfortunately for Junior Alvarado, we didn't make who rode him in his maiden race in Saratoga after working him all summer. Barkley and I didn't make up our mind whether we were going to go the funny side route and run against New York breds or jump in the deep end of the pool and go to the Champagne until pretty late in the game. Junior's agent did what he had to do, and that was Jose's agent back in the day with Funnyside, Mike Solito.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had a horse, Green Light Go, that they won a Grade 2 race at Saratoga on. So, Mike had to take that ride because we, were not committing that we were going to go to Champaign. So once we, did that, certainly weren't going to, at that point, be able to get Junior. And Barkley said, I think, Manny, he's a good rider. He's an up-and-coming rider. He's somebody that will stick with us. I mean, obviously, none of us at that point knew what he was going to turn out to be. We knew he had a real nice horse, but, not what we've got now. There's no way anybody could predict that.
Well, I know somebody who's got a 20-1 ticket on him who might have predicted it. Jack Knowlton, right here on VSiN. How many school buses of partners did you load up this time for the New York to Louisville trip, and how was it impacted by the pandemic?
We're going to have 2 school buses, a little more social distancing, but we're ready to rock and roll on Saturday over to Churchill from our hotel.
Refresh my memory, if you could. The one partner with you who is still around from Funny Side is
Lou Titterton. Lou lives his permanent residence is in Florida. He has another residence out in California, where his 2 boys live. So Lou's wife, unfortunately, has had some health issues, so he's going to be out there with his family watching the race. And I'm the Lone Ranger from the old days that's here in Louisville, and renewing a lot of the old friendships. But I've been to the Derby every year since Funny Side won it, and Churchill's been very gracious each year. They allow me to buy a box and present the Funny Side race trophy, which is race 2 on Kentucky Derby Day.
Oh, very good. I did not know that. I should have been paying attention. Did you get over to Kentucky Horse Park in Lexington yet on this trip to see old Funny Side?
I will. Barkley and I are going over to sale. They had to postpone the Fazit-Tipton New York bred sale because of the COVID. So they're having that. They got 167 head of New York breds that they're going to have, and then they've got the typical big Saratoga auction as well. So that is going to happen next week, and Barkley and I will head over after get done with the Derby, and I'll stop and see Funny Side and feed him some peppermints.
Oh, he's 20 years old, by the way, if you haven't done the math yet on the 17 years ago plus the 3 he was at the time. And that does that give you a chill, or does it just, I know the memories just must come washing back.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was, what all of us that were involved in said, this is the best time of our life. There's no way. And for me to be back here, with a horse in the Derby, to say nothing of being, a prohibitive favorite in the Derby. That just doesn't happen. And he's a New York bred, which, we're the only ones that ever won a Derby with a New York bred. And if we ever can do it again, talk about making history.
I dare ask you, other than the fact that we cannot get 20-1 anymore on Tiz the Law, how will you try to make money in this race other than from the winner's purse?
Well, I'll fool around a little bit. I'm not typically a real big gambler, but a horse that I think has got a reasonable shot to, maybe be second or third, I'm going to go with the other New York bred, New York Traffic. You look at his numbers, he's not that bad at all. And I think he'll be forwardly placed. And, that's kind of my long shot pick. Everybody, is going to look at Authentic and, is going to look at Honor AP. But, if you can beat one or both of them underneath Tiz, then you got an opportunity to, do pretty well.
New York Traffic, by the way, getting a little steam here in Las Vegas, 17-1 now at Circa and 20-1 at William Hill, holding steady 20-1 at stations. Jack, you've been so generous with your time with me and with the media as a whole. I know you'll get tugged in a lot of different directions, and it will only intensify. Best wishes to you. Good luck in the Derby, and thanks so much for your time again here on VSiN.
You're more than welcome. Always good to talk with you, Ron, and hopefully down the road here in the next few weeks, we'll be able to talk about a quadruple crown possibility.
Oh, man. The very thought of it is very heady. Thanks so much, Jack. We'll look forward to that. Indeed.
Take care.
Likewise. Bye. Coming up next, the exit of a horse that could have brought some early speed into this race. We'll talk about the exit of King Guillermo. More news and notes coming up as we continue on this, the road to the right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Let me introduce you to Alexander Hamilton, that is. You know, he's on the 10, and the 10 is what we give you if you sign up for First Bet, even before you put any of your own Hamiltons or maybe Franklins into that account. You get $10 to play this most unusual Derby in its entire history. $10 to bet on the Derby or any race you choose just for signing up for the First Bet app. And with First Bet, you also get the best advice possible for how to spend that $10. Artificial intelligence tapping into more than 200,000 races so that you can identify the best horse that you want to bet based on the factors that matter to you. And you can program them in to a very user-friendly First Bet app. The Derby is at hand. Get ready to bet and download the app. First.com/bet/Vegas500. I'll give it to you again. 1st.com/bet/Vegas500. Vegas 500 is significant because not only do you get that $10 free bet as soon as you sign up, but you get up to $500 additional dollars in bonuses. Every time you bet $100 your first month, you get a $10 bonus. Pile it up to $500. Again, the address, first.com/bet/Vegas500. Use the number 1 to start. 1st.com/bet/Vegas500. Ron Flatter with you here on Road to the Derby here on VSiN. Let's go over some news and notes late this week coming out of Churchill Downs, most notably on Thursday. News that King Guillermo will be scratched from the Derby because of a fever. He spiked that fever during the course of working out on Wednesday, actually, and trainer Juan Carlos Avila detected it, called in veterinarians on Thursday, was going to make the decision by 6 o'clock Eastern time, but we did catch up with him by text at about 4:30 and found out that indeed he was going to scratch King Guillermo from the race. Horse hadn't raced in 4 months anyway, and so as we look ahead, what's going to happen with King Guillermo next? Maybe the Preakness. When I asked him if he was going to look to the Preakness, Juan Carlos Avila texted back 2 prayer emojis to me, so that is to be seen. With 17 left in the race, they will use stalls 3 through 19 on the new gate. So the 2 inside stalls will be open, and stall 20 to the far outside will be open. Remember, the new gate already giving a little bit more breathing room for the one horse because you don't have that 3 stall gap between the 2 gates that used to be mushed together with the tires in between 14 and 15. So 3 through 19. By the way, I've seen some Twitter traffic wondering what happens to props if you happen to bet what stall or what gate the horse will break from that wins the race. I've seen a few of those. Check your rules because how it shows up on the chart will not match what shows up in terms of where the horse is in the gate. They may not match, so check your rules. Is it really the gate? Is it the stall? Is it the post position? Is it the saddle cloth? They could all be different. Tiz The Law jogged 2 miles Thursday before a planned gallop on Friday. Honor AP galloped 1.5 miles on Thursday, did some paddock schooling as well for trainer John Sheriffs. The big question, of course, is how are they going to do when it actually gets dry at Churchill Downs? The rain ending early Friday, dry and clearing for the Kentucky Oaks, and sunny for the Kentucky Derby. Answering protesters who want the race to be called off 5 months after the police shooting that killed Breonna Taylor in Louisville, a black woman who was at home when officers busted in looking for drugs that were not there. Churchill Downs put out what it called a message to our community. The basic position, and I will read directly from it, our fellow Kentuckians and fellow Americans are still asking to be heard. For all of us to understand the ongoing inequality that exists, and finally to adopt meaningful change. The release goes on to say that we are not doing enough quickly enough. That is true in our country, in our city, and in our sport. We know there are some who disagree with our decision to run the Kentucky Derby this year. We respect that point of view, but made our decision in the belief that traditions can remind us of what binds us together as Americans, even as we seek to acknowledge and repair the terrible pain that tears us apart. Against the backdrop of a sport that has had a profound lack of black participation, Churchill Downs said, we hear the voices that tell us we have not successfully created an environment in which everyone feels welcome or included. This is not acceptable, and we need to do more to ensure that our best intentions become a reality. We need to do more now to ensure that every member of our community is a part of our traditions. Churchill Downs, by the way, accepting that there will be protests outside the track on Derby, saying that they have experienced this before, and that happened back in 1967 amid racial tension around the country then, and so they accept that this is going to be a part of Derby Day outside the gates of Churchill Downs on Central Avenue in Louisville. Coming up, Duane Colucci from the Rampart Sportsbook will take us through some of the futures markets and his anticipation of what the post-time odds might really look like Saturday. We continue on the road to the Derby here on VSiN. Hey, I forgot something when I was talking to you about First Bet. I had one more thing I had to remind you of. Do you believe me? Do you believe I actually forgot something? Because you don't get this kind of acting at this time of day on this kind of a channel. What I didn't tell you about was the Derby guide that goes along with your sign up. And when you go ahead and drop that app into your phone or your tablet or your laptop, I guess you can't drop an app into your laptop, but you get the idea. Go to First Bet now, sign up, get that $10 free, not even a bonus, it's just a payment to you for coming aboard. And then once you start loading your money, you can start to get bonuses. Every time you bet $100, you'll get 10 back, up to $500 in bonuses. But that Derby betting guide is available for you as well. That's in addition to the artificial intelligence within the app, but just maybe an old-fashioned way to have it right in front of you. Yeah, the old-fashioned tablet, the old-fashioned phone. You can have that with the Kentucky Derby wager guide from First Bet. Once again, the address, first.com/bet/Vegas500 for more information. 1st.com/BET/Vegas500. Remember the promo code Vegas500. Get that $10 up front free, get all the bonuses when you bet, and get the Derby betting guide. First.com/bet/Vegas500. Ron Flattery with you here on VSiN. We've got updated Derby odds, and I got a guy I want to go ahead and see what he thinks of all of them now. He's at the Rampart, and he'll be making book himself on the Kentucky Derby this weekend, as well as the Kentucky Oaks on Friday. And he is the director of the sports book there in Summerlin, Nevada, one Duane Colucci. Welcome aboard, Duane.
How are you, Ron?
I'm just eager for these races to get here. Let me ask you first. Let me get some updated odds. These are futures, so I know you don't get your hands dirty from this, but it might be an indicator of what we'll see at post time on Saturday for the Kentucky Derby. And we're seeing Tiz The Law. Now the best price you can find on him is 1-2. That's at Circa and Stations. He's minus 160 at William Hill. Of course, Churchill Downs put a minus 167 on him, 3-5 for the morning line. Duane, where do you think this is actually going to fall in what is now a 17-horse field?
Yeah, well, that was a big defection of King Guillermo. So, I definitely think he's going to be more closer to them 2 to 5 odds, like we said, Ron. I think he's going to take an enormous amount of action. I mean, I think Honor AP is definitely going to be the second choice between you and I. I think he definitely is going to take more action than people assume. So, yeah, I think he's going to be 2 to 5, Tiz the Law, and I think Honor AP will be the second choice.
Yeah, so far, I mean, he is a clear second choice right now in the Nevada futures at basically 5-1. Circa actually cut him to plus 430, so shorter than 9-2. Does he get to 9-2 at post time at Churchill?
Yeah, I think he might even be less. I'll be honest with you. I think those two are going to take a major portion of the action. Authentic and Thousand Words will take action because they're from the Bob Baffert barn. But I really think these are the two horses that the public are going to focus on. Very similar to the Oaks, the prior day. I think that's a 2-horse betting race. I believe this is going to be very similar, a 2-horse betting race.
Speaking of authentic, by the way, still plus 1050 at Circa, but still now 8-1 at stations in William Hill. Thousand Words, by the way, almost 15-1 at Circa, but there's been some steam on him, down to 10-1 at stations and 12-1 at William Hill. You take a look. I mean, if I asked you, Duane, back in, let's say, I don't know, November, if I gave you 2 Bob Baffert horses and they would be in the neighborhood of 8-1 or higher, would you be taking that for the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, naturally. And, he had the 2 major defections, so that was a problem. But, yeah, anytime you could get Bob Baffert at enormous odds, we know his track record. The guy is a legend in this era, the modern day era of Triple Crowns and getting his 3-year-olds ready for the big races. So anytime you could, establish a big price on Bob Baffert like that, yes, I would have probably have taken it.
The steam on the Thousand Words, as mentioned, 15-1, a little shorter than that best price. But the other steam we're seeing, Sole Volante, 29-1 at Circa, 24-1 at stations, and Forcible, 33-1 and 22-1. And Money Moves, this is interesting. Money Moves, 32-1 at Circa, 18-1 at stations, which did a lot of odds cutting today. But you look at those 3 horses, would you anticipate that that's where the steam will stay, at least early on, between now and, say, the early hours of Saturday?
Well, Ron, you definitely, you mentioned a Todd Pletcher horse there in Money Moves. So he's going to take some action, I believe so. He's lightly raced. I like the horse coming into the race. He looks very good. The other horses are going to be compromised a little now because I don't believe with King Guillermo out of the race that the pace is going to be as quick. So, it's very difficult to gauge a futures market. And, I believe that the 2 horses, like we said, Tiz the Law, Honor AP, they're going to take a ton of money. I'm just kind of surprised New York Traffic isn't taking that much money. I think he's a major player. I've discussed it before. I think he might get a little late steam, but I understand Money Moves late steam because it is Todd Pletcher, lightly raced horse. Looks very attractive on the daily racing form menu and, the daily racing form past performances. So I think he will take some futures action, but I think most of the money is going to go on Baffert, Honor AP, and naturally Tiz the Law.
All right, I can't let you get away without at least offering what your insight will be to what you will have at your casino at the Rampart in terms of what you can and can't do in terms of Derby and Oaks betting. We've already outlined the reasons, so what will be the reality there?
The reality really, it stinks, Ron. I'll be honest with you. I wish we could definitely offer the full betting menu. I'm a horse racing guy. I'm a major advocate of horse racing. And when you could only supply the public with Win Play Show, Exacta, and Trifecta, it definitely takes away from my handle. It's disappointing. I wish there was a last minute push that we could get a contract done. But, we're still going to have the festivities going, Ron. We're going to give out free T-shirts for every $10 bet while supplies last. We're going to have the mint juleps flowing. And you know how Vegas does it. We always put a positive spin, even if there's some negativity surrounding us. We enjoy and put a positive spin on it.
All right. Mint juleps taste like putting Crest in a blender, don't you?
Well, I'm not a mint julep guy. I'm a Scotch guy, man. So I'll be avoiding, and I'm on duty anyway, so that's good.
Don't ruin the bourbon with that mint. Anyway, hey, handicappers like Duane are on the Pop-Up Podcast, the Ron Flatter edition, with Chris Andrews, Johnny Avello, and Vinny Magliulo. We went through every horse in the race. Duane saw the King Guillermo thing coming. That guy, you got Nostradamus on the show right now. So that's available right now at vsin.com/podcasts, and the regular Friday episode posting with Bob Baffert, John Sheriffs, Jack Knowlton, and NBC's Larry Colmus, available on Apple, Google, iHeart, Spotify, Stitcher, and vsin.com/podcasts, sponsored by our friends at First Bet. Coming up, Duane will match his expertise with that of XBTV handicapper Jeff Siegel. We're going to go hardcore into the Derby next as we continue on the road to the Derby on VSiN. Ron Flatter with you here on VSiN. Duane Colucci along from the Rampart Sportsbook right here in Las Vegas proper, or thereabout. And also somewhere in Southern California right now, watching from afar, we are going to be joined as we speak by a man who you're familiar with if you watch and listen to Follow the Money on VSiN, a regular on with Mitch and Pauly, and also certainly more so one of the stalwarts at XBTV, handicapper extraordinaire Jeff Siegel. Jeff, welcome aboard to this unique road to the Derby.
It is unique. The Derby in September. That's a first, and we will enjoy it. Look, I'm watching NBA basketball in September, and I'm enjoying that too. So I don't care what month it is. If it's good, you got me.
You and your Clippers, I know that's where your passion lies. And by the way, the new favorite in Las Vegas to win the NBA title. But let's get back to the favorite to win the Kentucky Derby. Tiz The Law. If you were going to try to outline a way that he loses this race, what would that be?
Well, it's not going to rain, so we don't have to worry about that. And that's one of the reasons why he's not undefeated. The only thing that I can find is that maybe he doesn't show up, but he always shows up. In fact, all 6 of his wins have been accomplished by 3 lengths or more. So other than the race that he got bottled up in and never really had a chance, he's won all of his races by himself. And his best race, I thought, well, certainly his best race was his last in the Travers, when not only did he win by 5, but he was actually eased up in the last 16th of a mile, and that was at 1.25 miles. So we don't even have to worry about the distance, and he's had time in between races, a month, and he's worked really, really well. I mean, there really isn't any chink in the armor. I mean, he's just a fantastic racehorse, and if he hadn't lost that race at Churchill in the slop last November, a race he really should have won, he'd be undefeated, and we'd be talking about him as one of maybe the best 3-year-olds we've seen in this century, really, comparing him with American Pharaoh and Justify and a few others. But he has that one loss, so he still has something to prove. But right now, I think he's the best horse in America, and that includes the older horses.
Yeah, Jeff, Duane Colucci, do you think that there will be any tarnish or anything, if he does go on to win the Triple Crown? Do you think there will be an asterisk or some people thinking that it wasn't a true Triple Crown with the COVID-19 situation and the different, races in different order and the Belmont Stakes not being 1.5 miles?
Well, maybe. It's possible that some people will say that. But here's another thing. If he goes out and wins the Triple Crown, he also won the Travers. And only one horse in the history of racing has been able to win the Triple Crown and the Travers in the same year, and that was Whirlaway, and that was back in before I was born, but not much before I was born. I think it was 1941.
All of us.
I think it was. So, I mean, that's a pretty good record in itself. And then, of course, he can have a chance to go on and beat the older horses as well. I know we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but, I mean, he's 3 to 5 on the morning line for a reason. And now, if this race had taken place earlier in the year and he was running against Charlatan and Nadal and Maxfield and that group, then maybe it would be tougher than it is right now. But hey, he's here and they're not. So you got to give him credit for being healthy and sound and improving with every start. So I tip my hat to him. I think he's fantastic.
Jeff Siegel from XBTV here on Road to the Derby on VSiN. Jeff and Duane, I'll ask you both, with the exit not only, of course, of Art Collector from this race, but also with a horse that could have brought some pace present. That's King Guillermo. Jeff, how do you think that impacts this race and therefore your betting on this race?
I was going to take a stand against King Guillermo anyway because I don't think you can win a Kentucky Derby having not raced since the first Saturday in May, which is what King Guillermo did. He was second in the Arkansas Derby, finished second in the Arkansas Derby. But the thing is, he liked to stalk and go, but he wasn't really that fast in the opening quarter or half, so I'm not sure that impacts the pace at all. The pace should be normal because Authentic, who's drawn way on the outside, he is the only horse really in the field, I think, that is absolutely 100% committed to going to the front. All the other horses who like to lay fairly close up, like New York Traffic and 1,000 Words and a few others like that, they're not that fast, and they don't have to go to the front. Authentic does. So from the outside post, he's going to bust out there and go. Now, I don't think he can go a mile and a quarter, but any horse can go a mile and a quarter if you leave him alone, especially a horse of his quality. And to me, that's the one thing I'll be looking for in the opening quarter of a mile as the field goes by the stands for the first time, the empty stands, by the way, for the first time. Authentic, to me, if he's relaxed and left alone, he's going to take them a long way, and I would suggest that although I think Tiz The Law will eventually go by him, I think Authentic's going to run well given that circumstance. And if I'm playing the race, I may play him, underneath a little bit, even though I don't know whether or not he can, finish if Tiz The Law kind of roars on by him at the quarter pole like Tiz The Law did to Uncle Chuck in the Travers. That could really break Authentic's heart. But then you have Honor AP, who is outside where he wants to be. He's only had 5 starts. He's never been behind horses taking dirt. And Mike Smith knows that that's not the way to ride him, and he's already out in the 16 hole anyway. So I think Honor AP will be in a good spot. He'll be somewhere in mid-pack, and then he'll rally wide in the clear, and he'll be right there. And, I'd like to say that I've got a long shot for you, but I don't. I mean, to me, this is going to be a formful race. These horses there's not a lot of mystery, these horses. They are what they are. It's not like, in May, when the Derby, when you have to figure out whether a horse is going to get a mile and a quarter and what stage of development he is. These horses are pretty well known, and I'm not looking for any shocking type of upset from anybody. I think it's going to be formful.
Duane?
Yeah, I got to agree with Jeff. I mean, when you get to this point of the season, you kind of are established already. So there is no parity. There is no question marks. I believe it's going to be very formful as well. I like the way, Tiz The Law is working, prepping up to the race. The Travers was just off the hook. I mean, just an amazing 109 buyer. The Ragazin is there. And, it's so hard to pick a long shot here. I think Authentic will control the pace, like Jeff said. He's got a good post for it. He's just going to clear from the outside. I think that 1,000 Words will also have some tactical speed. So you're talking about Bob Baffert having the tactical speed. But you saw what happened in the Travers when, like Jeff said, Uncle Chuck got blown by. Sometimes it takes your will and your spirit, even from a racehorse, believe it or not. So I think Tiz The Law is going to win this race rather easily, barring any traffic trouble. And, I think it is formful. I think Honor AP is working very well. He's going to come with his late closing kick. I think 1,000 Words will be there after Authentic. And like I said, New York Traffic as well. So I think it's going to be very, very formful moving on. And I think it's just, a fabulous Kentucky Derby and a possible Triple Crown and Travers winner, like you said.
Duane Colucci from the Rampart and Jeff Siegel from XBTV here on VSiN's Road to the Derby. Ron Flatter with you here. Let's take a look at the Kentucky Oaks. If you're consuming this program before Friday afternoon at Churchill Downs or wherever you may be, then you can obviously look at the Oaks. Gamine for Bob Baffert, even money on the morning line, but based on what we're seeing in global markets, that looks like an overlay because we're seeing odds of as short as -165 and no better than -150. Jeff, it's Gamine. We know Swiss Skydivers there, and we also know that Speech is maybe the next closest. But what do you look at in this 9-horse field for the Kentucky Oaks?
Well, I had my doubts, really, whether Gamine wanted to run a mile and an eighth after her second start when she won a race. She subsequently had to give the money back on a bad test, but she won an allowance race going a mile and 1/16 at Oaklawn in her second career start, and she was kind of life and death to do it, to beat Speech. And at that stage, I thought, and I'm pretty sure Bob Baffert thought the same thing, that, maybe she's not really ready to go distance to ground. So what Bob did is he backed her up to a one-turn mile in the Acorn. She won that race by almost 19 lengths. And then he backed her up again to the test stakes when she won by 7 lengths, going 7/8. Now she's going a mile and an eighth. Now, she's a terrific filly. She's worked great. I mean, she's looked fantastic in the morning. But, she's an into mischief, and they tend to want to go maybe a mile and 16th at the most, maybe mile and an eighth. But she's a 3-year-old filly, and she's going to have to do something at a very short price that she may or may not want to do, especially in a race in which you've got two major contenders, Swiss Skydiver and Speech, who absolutely want to run a mile and an eighth. Now, Speech came really within a neck of Gamine at Oaklawn Park, and they're both much better now than they were then. So Skydiver, she was just one going a mile and a quarter. She can get it. So from a gambling standpoint, if I had, gun to my head, if I said, do I think Gamine's going to win, I would say yes, because she's the best filly in the field. I mean, she's terrific. Do I gamble at her at that price with the question mark of whether or not she really wants to go a mile and an eighth? The answer is no. I mean, I don't need. I mean, if I want to take 3 to 5 or 2 to 5, I don't want to have to ask any questions about it, And I do have some doubt about Gamine. Now, hey, let her go out and prove it, and great if she does.
Duane, I got about 30 seconds for you.
Yeah, I think Swiss Skydiver has an excellent chance. She was geared down in the Alabama. That was just a dominating performance. She already faced boys, so we know that she's definitely up to the task. Gamine, like I say time and time again, usually the winner of the test becomes a fabulous champion sprinter. We saw that with Very Subtle, few other horses, safely kept in that mold. And I think the horse is bred to go a little shorter. So definitely I wouldn't like to take that 2 to 5 price. I will look elsewhere in this race, but she's a fabulous filly, and a credit to Bob Baffert. That Acorn and the test, those two races were unbelievable. So look out, you're taking definitely a chance betting against her.
All right, Duane Colucci from the Rampart, Jeff Siegel from XBTV. Thank you both for your insight. I hope we can take it to the bank. And thanks for being with us on VSiN. A reminder, Saturday's live show with Alicia Hughes, Vinny Magliulo, Chuck Esposito. It's one final look at the road to the Derby. 2 o'clock Eastern Time, 11 o'clock Pacific Time, Saturday here on VSiN. Ron Flatter, so long from Las Vegas.